All right. Welcome, everyone, to our webinar. Help, I'm drowning under my workload. I realise that this has been such a big topic for practice owners and practice managers over the past year or so, probably since the beginning of the pandemic and before. So my husband Dave and I thought we'd run a webinar today on how to successfully delegate to your team so that you can focus on the strategic management of your practice, which as a practice owner and an executive manager, like a practice manager, you want to be spending the majority of your time doing that. So, as I always do, I won't be giving any specific legal advice during this session. It's going to be general guidance only. And if you do have specific requirements for legal advice in relation to delegation, I recommend that you reach out and get some that suits your particular needs. So who is this webinar for? It's going to be for any practice manager or owner of a medical practice in Australia, and it's especially if you find you're the first to arrive and the last to leave your clinic and you're drowning under a never-ending list of tasks to complete every single day. I can definitely identify this. It's for any leader of a medical practice who is amazing at what they do and wants to ensure that they're making the most efficient use of their time. We know that we live in a culture of busyness where being busy is actually something that's revered, and it's an answer that people give to how are you, but is being busy what you need to be all the time when you're trying to be strategic and lead a practice? We'll go into that more today. So we've got a 30-minute webinar today, and I thought we could go through the following to help you understand why it is important to delegate, why leaders fail to get to delegate, because we know it's important, but sometimes we just find it so hard to let go of things. And so I'll explain why that is, because understanding the psychology of it will really help you with the next steps, how to determine which tasks can be delegated, and how to delegate tasks effectively and efficiently. There's that old worry that people have that it's going to take longer to delegate than just to do it themselves. But that's not always the case. We'll explain more about that today too. So who am I? For those of you I haven't met, hi, my name's Sarah Bartholomews. I lead a law firm called YouLegal. We support medical practices to be legally compliant and to grow on a foundation of compliance and legal excellence. I suppose we want you to not get a call from a regulator. We don't want you to get into trouble because your contract is missing something. We want you to be secure in the knowledge that you're growing your practice from a stable base. I am from a medical family, which is what gives me the interest in supporting doctors and practice managers. I come from a family of surgeons and allied health professionals, dentists, physios, a nurse. There's basically, you know, the whole gambit of there in my family. And so a few years ago, I wrote a book called Growing a Medical Practice: From Frustration to a High Performance Business. And I republished that last year following the changes with telehealth and remote working that everyone was dealing with. And I also recorded it as an audiobook, and it's available through Audible if you have a subscription, and the book is available on our website, and if you order it soon you might get it in time for Christmas. So just a little plug for the book. Let me introduce you to my husband Dave, and he will introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Dave. I am a serial entrepreneur, so I have lots of experience with the journey that many of you are undertaking of growing a thriving medical practice, but in different industries. I primarily help business owners with their leadership journeys, how to step up in leadership for themselves, and also how to inspire leadership in others as well. I'm probably most famous for being the wife of Sarah Bartholomew, the goddess of governance, but I also have an esteemed career in business myself. So I sit quietly and look after our children a lot of the time, but I'm also very active in the businesses behind the scenes. So thank you for inviting me to come on and share some of my experience over years of business on this webinar today, Sarah.
Thank you, Dave. What we thought we'd make you a promise at the beginning of this webinar, and our promise to you is that you'll have a clear understanding of the process of delegation and how to do it in your clinic. So without further ado, I better keep an eye on the time, otherwise we might just keep talking past your 30-minute lunch break. But going to start with, why is it important to delegate? I think there can be an experience of practice owners and practice managers where maybe they haven't really ever had leadership training as part of their training. They might be excellent at what they do, but being a leader does require some different skills that being a doctor and being and potentially being a business manager don't include. So developing your skills as a leader is a really important reason to delegate. It can be difficult to develop those skills and you might need some support, but delegating is definitely important and an important skill for a leader. And so you can start out small and grow your delegation skills, which we'll go through how to do that a bit later. Building accountability in others. As an owner or as a practice manager, you might feel like you're accountable and responsible for everything, but as part of growing out your delegation matrix or delegating to others, you can require that other people be accountable for things, even if the ultimate responsibility is still with you as the leader. Delegating gives you the opportunity to share in collective success, which being the person who does everything doesn't necessarily give you that feeling. It also helps you create an engaged team. So as we know, there's this difficulty with hiring in medical practices and many other industries at the moment. And one thing that employees really love is to feel like they're part of something. And by growing their skills and responsibilities and learning as they go, you really have that opportunity to create a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many in your team is better than one. It's really very satisfying when you start working through it. You get to empower skilled people. So you build capacity in your team and empower them to provide support where before you might have felt like you were the only person who could do things. You free up time, which gives you the opportunity to focus on the strategic side of the business and make a difference where you as the owner or as a practice manager really want to, rather than just doing the nitty-gritty administrative tasks all on your own. And you also get an opportunity to find better ways. So it might be that you're doing a task and that you've always done it a certain way, but having diversity of thinking in terms of how you perform tasks can really help you find new and better ways that you might not have known existed before, or just thinking about it with a slightly different lens can really help to make your practice better. And it's not to say that the way you were doing things are necessarily wrong, but it is amazing when different people who think differently come together on the same task, can come up with better ways to do things as a team. So why do leaders fail to delegate? it can be difficult from an emotional point of view, I suppose, to delegate. You might not want to appear like you're superior to anyone else. You want to have a flat structured team, and you might feel like it's just passing work off to someone else, and that they might think that you think that you're better than them. You assume that others won't like the tasks that you don't like. So a great example of this in my own practice is I used to do everything when I very first started, and I found the bookkeeping side of things quite challenging. And I've now had a bookkeeper who's worked with us for probably 7 of the 8 years I've been in practice, and she loves it, and she really thrives in it. So I'm growing her tasks to tasks that I used to rely on our accountant for, and she's really enjoying that opportunity as well. You might want things done a certain way because you think that that's the best or only way to do things. There might be a fear that you have of failing, of others failing to deliver on your expectations, and that can really stop you. There might be a fear of becoming obsolete. What if I make myself redundant by delegating the whole of my job? You might also have a fear of being dependent, and that you're then relying on others to do things, and you're not holding the keys to the kingdom anymore. You're relying on people, and if they don't delegate within a certain time, or they call in sick, or they're not doing their tasks as you expect, that you're reliant on someone who may not, what's the word I'm thinking of? Deliver. You might think of delegating as really time consuming. As I said earlier, maybe you think teaching someone to do it might take too long, and you might as well just keep doing it yourselves. But you also might just be overwhelmed because the number of tasks that you have to do and that you want to delegate are just way too significant. Have I missed anything there, Dave, or any experiences you'd like to share?
I've got a bunch that I could probably share, but I'll do them. I'll share some as I go a bit later. Thank you.
All good. All right, how to determine which tasks can be delegated. So not to add to your overwhelm, but this can really help you think about what you might delegate first. So tiny tasks, little things. Something I recently delegated, which you might laugh at me for, is checking the mail every day. So every day for the last 8 years, I checked the mail, and now one of our team does it, and it just clears space in my head. I love mail, so I didn't find it to be a task that bothered me at all, but it is nice just to not have that on my mind every day. Tedious tasks, so things that you don't really enjoy. They're not your jam. You are feeling like they're monotonous, or they really aren't using your skills to the best of your abilities. You might want to delegate tasks that are really time consuming. So things that are taking you ages to do, that you think maybe aren't the best use of your time. Teachable tasks, so opportunities to help your team skill up that you'll be empowered to teach. Tasks you feel like you're terrible at. I can't think of an example, but you might, everybody has different strengths, I suppose, and thinking of a task that maybe you're not as good at, that you know maybe someone else in your team might be really good at, is a bonus. Also time-sensitive tasks, so urgent tasks that need to be done. So here at ULegal, we try and return calls as quickly as possible, usually within a 2-hour time frame. And sometimes I'm in meetings that go for longer than that. So sometimes I'll need to rely on my team to be returning those calls within the time frame that we like to. You may also need to consider delegating tasks that you love but are no longer really the best use of your time or part of your job. That could be answering the phone, or for me, I love when someone buys one of my books, I love wrapping it and writing a thank you note and putting it in the post box. And I certainly do like to do at least part of that process. But now there's someone in my team who does support me with that, which is really, I don't know, it's a good thing and a bad thing. It frees up my headspace, but it is something I love and I found very, very hard to let go of. Any thoughts on these ones, Dave?
Probably for me, having been a delegator to hundreds over multiple decades, for me, Teachable is the thing that I've kept arriving at, is that the older that I get, the more I'm entrusted with. And if I can start to become more aware of the tasks that are teachable at the right time, then that can be a real breakthrough for me in delegation. I've particularly had this experience with having young people growing up in our house and trying to understand where my expertise and their capability overlap and seeing when to teach different things. And so this is something that hasn't come to me overnight, but it's a skill that as I've become more practiced in delegation, I've gotten much better at estimating of all the tasks that I have, what could I teach to these people, and then taking that to them. The other thing is there's a real vulnerability that I quite like. We were talking about what you were terrible at, and I started laughing because there's a whole lot of compliance things that I don't do well that I've just been really vulnerable with you around, and just saying, if I do this, it's going to end badly. And sometimes that vulnerability can really inspire and empower other people to step up because they know that to be true about you. They've experienced you. And so for me, the attention to detail sorts of things, when I actually level with the more detail-oriented people in my team that I'm worried that I'm going to do a bad job of this, that can really empower them to step up as well. So I feel like it's not so much just about trying to get things off my plate, but also becoming wiser about making choices around teachability and also vulnerability as well.
Beautiful. So how to delegate efficiently and effectively. This is some guidelines. Choose the right person for the job. So you might have someone in your business that you think will be the right person for the job. Just choose that person that you think is the right person for the job. So maybe that I should change that sentence, because you don't always know. People do surprise you, and it might be somebody else. Explain to them why you're delegating, and that can help remove the superiority worry that people do have. And also it makes it clear that you're not just palming your work off onto them for no reason. Co-create clear instructions. So I run a podcast, and one of my team helped create it by doing all of the tasks every month that were necessary. And I got her together with me to create a document that explains how to do all of the tasks for the podcast. So now anyone in our team can do it if she's not available. Provide resources and training. And look, what I just explained just then, even creating that manual, Kim doing that helped create the resources for training for others. So you don't have to feel like doing this is all on you. You can work together to do it. Then delegate responsibility and authority. So saying you have the permission to do this particular task. And then check the work to make sure that it's how you expect it. And if it's not, you can refine your instructions. And of course, always remember to say thank you, because people love being acknowledged for the what they're providing in the workplace. So I'm going to pass over to Dave to explain how to do an audit. And actually, I think this is the how-to section of the webinar, isn't it? So If anybody does have questions, I'll keep an eye on those and we'll deal with those at the end. So go for it, Dave.
So this is a process that I've helped countless, primarily entrepreneurs and business owners around the world deal with. And if you're looking for my ultimate source of truth on this, it's a lady who actually lives in Adelaide now called Jana Matthews, who taught me delegation over the internet more than 20 years ago. I started really getting onto her stuff. So taking her early ideas for delegation, I think I took some of those things to the next level in terms of my own experience. Two other sources that would be helpful for me. There's a book, The 4-Hour Work Week, which I don't like the values of, but I love some of the tools in. And so that really taught me some things as well. And I also owe a debt of gratitude to one of my Entrepreneurs Organisation forum mates who really pushed me to take this to the next level and really make it my own, and also introduced me to a thing called the Eisenhower Matrix, which we're going to see a variant of here, which I've made my own. So essentially the key steps here are, first of all, and most importantly, to brainstorm every task. And so I do this about every 4 years. I start getting bunched up with tasks and I brainstorm all of my tasks. You don't have to do this for your whole life. I would encourage you to do this just for your work to start with, sort of keep it contained in one area. But then once you've got it mastered, this is something you can do in all areas of your life, which is what I do now. What I do then is I rank all of my tasks that I've got, all of them out, and I put them from the most critical to the least critical. So to do this, I use an Excel spreadsheet and I just write them in, and then I can cut and paste them so that they end up with the most critical task at the top and then all the way down to the least critical task at the bottom. Once I've got them ranked, then all I do is then I put the top half and then the bottom half. And then all of the top half, I just write next to them the letter H, which stands for high. And then at the bottom half, I write L, so that I can tell that these are high criticality or lower criticality tasks. The second thing I do is once I've done that, then I get exactly the same list, and now I rejumble them and I rank them by how much time they consume. So the quickest task will go at the top and the most time-consuming task will go at the bottom. Now, if you don't like Excel, this can also be done with Post-it notes or even just little slips of paper, but the point is that you want them to be movable. And now once I've ranked them then from the quickest task to the most time-consuming or slowest task, I do the same thing. The top half, I also then write, I can put a comma and then I'll put H or L next to it. And so the top half of those quick tasks, once again, they will have a second letter H, and then the bottom half will have an L. And what I then end up with is I now have a diagram, or I'm able to get these tasks and I'm able to put them into one of 4 quadrants. So they're either high criticality and high quickness, and I can then see their coordinates, I guess, and divide them up. What I do is once I've divided them into those different quadrants, and I'll show you a little diagram that helps make that a little bit easier to understand in a second, is I start delegating the tasks out that are both low criticality and low time consumption. And this goes against, I think, the natural flow of what people want to do. Certainly for me, I want to delegate out the tasks which are high time consumption and high criticality, because they're the ones that are most upsetting to me. But this is one of the secrets of this process, is that by delegating these low criticality, low time consumption tasks first, it allows me to get better at delegation slowly with things which are easy and non-critical to delegate. And most importantly, it allows me to build the confidence of the other people that I'm starting to delegate to that I'm good at delegation with tasks that are low time consumption, quick little delegations. It allows me to build a culture of delegation before I dive deep into it. And then I delegate one task a week until all of those low time consumption, low criticality tasks are delegated. So this is essentially the core of the process. If this is all that you take away from today for the how, this is a great start. In order to show the way I sort of conceptualize this in my mind, we need to move to the next slide, which has 4 boxes. Sarah, do you mind to move to the next slide? Maybe you have moved to the next slide. There we go. Beautiful. So this is how my tasks end up, is that the tasks are either fast or slow, they're critical or they're routine. And I start delegating right down here in these fast routine tasks, these tasks that are not mission critical, and I get those delegated out. And then I start delegating the routine but slow tasks, which is where I get most of the relief, but I need to get a run up into that. Then I delegate these slow critical tasks, but I do them very, very carefully. This is where I'm really thinking about learnability and I'm really thinking about vulnerability. I really want to think that out. And I keep the fast tasks. So if you want to proceed to the next slide, Sarah, that's what the final slide will explain, is that when I've delegated out all of these quick routine tasks that don't take up much time, they're not super critical, then I can move into these routine slow tasks, which is where I got most of the relief. The other thing that's really interesting about this process is that when I have delegated all of this out, I still keep all of the fast critical tasks. And so, I don't want to delegate those tasks out necessarily because a lot of those are needle moving activities. And so usually once I've out all of quadrants 1, 2, and 3, I might then redo the process, but I might do it by different variables. I might look at my remaining tasks and ask which ones of them, say, sap my energy or build my energy or some of those different things. So there's different variables that you can use once you've done a delegation by speed and criticality. Back to you, Sarah. Back to you. I already summarized this.
This one mine?
No, I've already summarized this. So just go on to the next slide and it's for you.
All right. So the final step is to leverage an expert. It's not easy, as we've said, emotionally and practically. So leveraging an expert brings new ideas, best practice and accountability, which hopefully you've got some new ideas today and you understand a process for how to go about delegating tasks in your clinic that maybe you didn't know before. So today I promised that you'd have a clear understanding of the process of delegation and how to do it in your clinic. We've created a delegation policy that's available on ULegal's website, and it's at a discount of $300 for the next week. So jump on there and have a look. This is the link for it. We'll send it out with the email as well tomorrow with the recording, so you can go back and some other materials as well, which will be really helpful. If you have any questions about that, you're always welcome just to reply to one of the emails that I've sent you in the lead up to the webinar as well.